You look at the results of high-level Counter-Strike tournaments from September 2016 after the August player break to the present, I think you'll notice a unprecedented amount of uncertainty or inconsistency in results, and then a lack of dominance in results. With that starting to change now with the Astralis era, but we'll see if Astralis keeps winning and you fully call this next period the Astralis era, or if these super teams are going to come in. But anyway, there's this period from September to maybe December 2016 where there's all this inconsistency in results. And this sort of creates a problem because in general, Counter-Strike has always had like a singular dominant team, and that the era, like when you talk about the history of the game, like there's sort of a macro, like a shortcut to how to describe history, and that's you take the dominant team and you call it that era. Like NIP dominated from a certain period to a certain period, and you call that the NIP era, and then Fnatic later dominated, and then SK for even shorter time dominated. So there's like an easy access to the history. It's very understandable by fans, and you can just say it really quick. Oh, back in the Fnatic era, you know. And you can always make those eras more specific, like maybe LDLC or Envious had a time where they look like the best team, or you want to pick a different team actually look better than Fnatic, or you want to split Fnatic into like the Pronex era and the Dennis. You can always be more specific, but yeah, it's called like it's generally the history is named by eras, but there's this inconsistency and lack of dominance in the September to December period. So what do we call it? I actually came up with a name as early as October 2016. I want to call it the uncertainty period. Now, the competing name I think will inevitably sort of become the go-to sort of title, remembering the sort of well-remembered name for the period will be the Parity Era, which is a name suggested by Thorin. So I just thought I'd talk about in this video why I think. I mean, I don't want to sound so egotistical, like it has to be given my name. I want to give, like God giving Adam, like his name. Like I want to create dominance over the historical remembrance of this era. But yeah, I think there's reasons for why you could call it the uncertainty era versus the parity era, and what the two eras the names kind of connote, and like how that relates to my understanding of the era, and why I think it's hard to, come up with a singular word that describes all of these attributes. But I think, from my perspective, uncertainty certainly carries a lot of qualities that I think are very much embedded in this period of play. So we'll sort of go through this in this audio recording, and I'll sort of give my argument for why I think uncertainty, or maybe another name closer to that word, might be a better fit. So let's start off with the reason for why people want to call it the parity era. So I think the central argument is they look at the results and maybe they see a team that goes from like first to not getting out groups to like eighth, and they think, well, see, the thing is, it's not like it's like random or something. The reason what's happening is there's a very tight-knit group of teams, say 6 teams, who are all very close in strength, and maybe some teams look better generally than others, but there's some interplay between these teams. One team can be another team in the 6, maybe the 6 there's a 6 team and a first team, but maybe one week the 6th team can beat the 2nd team, or the 4th team can beat the first team, so that sort of creates inconsistencies. It makes it seem like it's really random, when it's really just these high-level teams just sort of battling it out. I think if the best sort of argument for this, if you look at the Michael period of Ninjas in Pajamas, NIP. So if you look at NIP at the very start of this period, they won the first tournament at the beginning of September, the first major tournament. Not major like Valve major, but very significant, high-level, highly competitive tournament. They won Star Ladder I-League Star Series Season 2, the name I always mess up. They won that tournament, and then they went out in groups at Epicenter, which is another really big tournament, and then they made top 4 at ESL Pro League Season 4 finals. So, if you look at the results, that's very, dissonant. They won an event. They won that over G2. And that was a tournament with VP and Na'Vi, who were, considered the better teams of that very early uncertain. If you look at September, October, a lot of people will say VP and Na'Vi stand out as being very good teams in that period. So that was an event with, it was very stacked, and NIP won that. Didn't face VP or Na'Vi because they went out of groups, but whatever. And then they actually came out in groups at Epicenter. But if you think about Epicenter, if you remember Group A, I think it's Group A, all 4 teams in that group went 1-1 in their best of 2 series, which led to that weird tiebreak scenario. And a lot of people really angry about the format, best of 2 is just a bad format, which I don't disagree with. But actually NIP was just had the lowest amount of round wins or something, or maybe it was round differential. I forget the exact tiebreaker. But yeah, they just got that's why they sort of went out of the group. So that actually shows proof of concept. That's a lot of parity. Teams all going back and forth 1-1, and it's actually the NIP not being significantly worse than the team who gets out of the group. It's exact opposite. They're very close, and they just have to be kicked out because of the format, because of the tiebreakers. So, and then, they have another decent result at ESL Pro League Season 4. So if you think about those 3 results, Star Ladder was really good, but they didn't actually have to face the best teams of the era. Then at Epicenter, the results are actually kind of good too. They won 4 games, lost 4 games, won 3 games and lost 3 games because they obviously don't play themselves in the group stage in a 4-team group. And then they did top 4 at ESL Pro League Season 4. They lost to SK, who's a good team at the time, elite team at the time, in the semifinals, right? So pretty decent. Looks pretty decent all over if you look at all 3 results. But if you look at just the numerical, the first grouped, then top 4, it looks very dissimilar. So, you can kind of see what they're talking about, or this idea, this Parity Era idea. It sort of makes sense. But here's sort of why I think the Uncertainty Era makes sense to me. So there's 3 things that really stand out. First, it's record-breaking or historically unique results. And then there's the inconsistency of top teams. And there's the third, the confusion of who's actually the best team at any given point in time. So let's talk about record-breaking results. So I talked about that NIP's win at Star Letter I League Star Series Season 2. That really difficult name. They actually won that with a stand-in with Michael Lele. And that was the first time ever, I think everyone's agreed on this. I don't think anyone's come up with why this is wrong, because this was said immediately afterwards. I think everyone just sort of nodded their heads at it. No one could think of a counter example. That was the only tournament where a high-level tournament with a team with a stand-in actually won. So that's pretty remarkable, right? So that shows well, this is new. This has never happened before. This is very different from the status quo. And there's this another sort of very historic result when Cloud9 won ESL Pro League Season 4, and this was the first time in a decade a North American team in Counter-Strike has won a very high-level tournament. So that's, a very historic result. This is an anomaly. This is very different. This is strange, right? This is different than the last two years of Counter-Strike. Well, you could say that Liquid, when they had Simple, could have won a tournament, if it was an 18 tournament instead of a 16-team tournament, when they sort of had those 2 really good runs at the major. But they didn't. And then, there's other good runs by North American teams in the past. But this is sort of the first time they've done it, 100%. VP was missing out the tournament, but Cloud9 did beat SK in the finals of that tournament, and this was in Brazil. This is a very, very legit win. You can keep going with the nuances, they played sort of an easy opponent in Mouse Sports and stuff like that. But, they won the tournament. They won a lot of prize money. It's a fully acceptable high-level result. First time for a North American team in a decade. That's very strange, very different. And then actually Optic, another North American team, won E-League Season 2. And, okay, first you have to think, wow, this doesn't happen in 10 years, and then it happens twice in the span of months. That's very strange. And then the other thing we got to think about with Arctic winning that, like, yeah, they got a lot of breaks and stuff, but I think people at the time said that this was the worst team or the lowest rated team to ever win a major. That sort of word's weird. A high level event. And I think they were rated 12th at the time. They had a really good Montreal with Northern Arena Montreal versus sort of a limited field. They beat G2 in the finals. So I mean, they're a decent team. So that's a decent win. But then they had a really bad result at DreamHack Winter, so people weren't expecting much. They got grouped, went 0-2, lost pretty immediately there. So people weren't really expecting much at E-League, and they won it. So this is, again, a historic result. This is the lowest rated team to ever win a huge tournament like this. And this is a very prestigious tournament. It's on television, $1 million plus prize pool. I mean, this is a big deal. Very, very unique, very strange, very historic. Or maybe you want to call it ahistoric. There's no precedent, So these are strange results. These are dissonant results. This is different from the status quo. And the other thing is there's an inconsistency among top teams. So the first two teams I like to think about when I think of inconsistency is Virtus.pro. Now, Virtus.pro was sort of the de facto best team in the world in this beginning part of the era before Astralis came over, and with Glaive changed and sort of became the go-to team. People want to say that, Virtus.pro won E-League Season 1, then they won Bucharest, and they got second at ESL, won New York, and Epicenter. So they're very good. But I think people kind of forget these two smaller tournaments that VP attended where, Star Ladder, Star Series, I-Series, I messed that name up. I knew I'd mess it up. They actually, at Star Ladder I-League Star Series Season 2, they actually went out in groups, like I said before. And people will forget about this other result, WESG, the European Finals, where they actually placed third after losing to Electronics Team Russia in the semifinals. So they first won E-League Season 1, had that month break, the player break. Then they won Bucharest. Was it Bucharest first or Star Ladder first? Well, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, won Bucharest, then grouped at Star Ladder, I-League Star Series Season 2. Then then second at ESL 1 New York. Then the third. You think third is a good result, but if you look at the teams in that tournament, there's no reason they should have lost. They should have definitely won that tournament. Losing to Team Russia, which is a mixed team, that's just completely unexpected for the best team in the world. Even though it's third place, it's kind of close to the top. And then they got second at Epicenter. So there's an inconsistency there. Well, it's still trending. It's pretty high, and I think they deserve to be called the best team in the world in that era. I mean, there is an inconsistency there. Another team, Navi, who's sort of a team that was leading the scene for a high part of the year, especially the beginning of 2016. After the simple change, they were very inconsistent. First, they had the bad Star Ladder, just like at VP. Then they had two good results, New York and Epicenter, just like VP, and then two really bad results at ESL Pro League Season 4 in Oakland. Now, it goes bad result, good, good, bad, bad, right, of those 5 results. But, of 5 results, only 2 of the 5 are good. I mean, I think that's inconsistency, even though it was sort of placed like a bad one, then 2 good ones in a row, and 2 bad ones in a row. I mean, if you look at the 5 tournament thing, that's very inconsistent, even though the exact order sort of shows like a 2 tournament run of the same quality and another 2 tournament run of the same quality. So I think there's a lot of inconsistency in the top teams. And if you think of other teams who are sort of in this top maybe 6, I mean, people want to pick out NIP, but that's sort of a wash because of the reasons I mentioned before. Cloud9 is a great example. I mean, they had a lot of good results at the beginning of their run as a 5 at Northern Arena Toronto and Star Ladder and Bucharest and ESL Pro League Season 4. But if you actually remember, they had that really bad performance at E-League Season 2 in the group stage that they're they had that thing where group stage was once a week, like one part of the group stage was a weekend So like the group stages were way before the actual playoffs. And Cloud9 actually did really bad at that. Their group, which was I think group C? I think they're Group C, and they lost to Mouse Sports and Immortals I think it was Mouse Sports and Immortals to go out of that group, and those aren't super superb teams at all. And Cloud9's looking like a top 5 team in the world at this point. And then, after that, they had the really good result, best result, 10 years at ESL Pro League Season 4. So there's like this inconsistency, and later Cloud9 obviously has all these bad results in a row, and then they don't even get to the major. So there's inconsistency at Cloud9. Another team you want to mention maybe is Dignitas, who also had that really good Epicenter and, some good results beforehand, but then like really slipped off at other tournaments. Now people want to blame travel for that, and you can to some degree, but yeah, you see like Dignitas having this super spiker result and never repeating that, and only making top 8 at this most recent major, the E-League major. So yeah, doesn't seem like, sort of teams can peak, and then they can. The only team I think really showed consistency was SK. They were either placed second or top 4 at every tournament they attended. Every tournament they've attended post-September, I can't think of an exception. Even when they switched out FNX for Fox, they still made top 4 at ECS Season 2 and the majors. So, they're consistently, in there, in the running. So another team... No, I don't think any other team of that 6 really stands out as being inconsistent. So a lot of teams, so VP, Navi, Cloud9, NIP, Dignitas, all sort of have an inconsistent quality to them. Now there's also a part which is really confusing, when I think really captures sort of this word uncertainty, is the weird thing where SK actually doesn't participate in tournaments for a month and VP does the same. So SK in September and VP in November. Now, I guess it's fine to miss tournaments, but what's the really confusing thing is, and it's really confusing, maybe retrospectively, it's very sort of easy to understand, but I think people won't appreciate how difficult it was to sort of assess teams in September and in November. Because if you remember, the way people would talk back in September is when VP started doing well. It was like, well, once SK come back, they're going to definitely lead the world again. VP is just a placeholder. I guess eventually VP in the long run was just a placeholder for Astralis to eventually rise up. But, people were saying that, like, well, this tournament, how strong is this tournament really? Because the clear leading team in the world, SK, won the last 2 majors. They're not here. And then when SK actually showed up, they were still an elite team, but they had some weaknesses to them. They were sort of not able to ever be dominant again. And maybe you can even argue that SK would never dominate in the first place, but that's, they were never the leading team in the world by any large stretch, right? They never won another tournament, always second or top 4. And so that sort of really confusing. With, then you had to sort of retrospectively, VP was the best team in that era then. But at the time, you thought that, VP might have not been that good, and this tournament was actually kind of weak because SK wasn't there, and then SK was going to come back. So it's very confusing. And then you do the same thing in November, where Astralis starts to get really good. They have a good result at Oakland. They have the good Oakland result, and you think they're coming up, and then SK is also sort of hitting consistent seconds, and they had the second at ESL Pro League Season 4 in Oakland, so they sort of look like the best team in the world in November, even though they got 2 seconds. But then everyone was thinking at that time that, VP was just the best team in the world still. They were going to come back and win E-League Season 2, and then they came 8th. So who is actually the best team in that era? Was VP still the best team? Still number 1, and they actually just dropped a little bit when they had that bad result, or do you don't carry that through, and the second VP leaves, they sort of lose their top place? It's very hard, and it was very confusing in the moment. Like, everyone assumed VP was the best team, and they came back and it wasn't. So it's sort of weird how you retroactively sort of understand who is the best team and how strong this tournament was. It's very And it's very confusing, and there's a discrepancy between what you thought at the time and then when you think retrospectively. Like, I think people even will say now that SK was the best team in the world in November. But it's very difficult because no one thought that at the time. So there's there's the inconsistency of the teams, there's this uncertainty in who's actually the best, and there's this confusion who's the best, and there's these weird unprecedented historic results. So that's sort of this where I'm getting this uncertainty, this feeling of this is new, this is different, this is somehow odd, and there's these single tournament spikes by these teams like NIP and Cloud9, and then these teams like Na'Vi and VP are always doing the same tournament to tournament. So there's this very real oddness about this era, and you can talk about all the reasons for why it's odd, but it's not like there's reasons like the record-breaking results and the disappearances that add confusion and add sort of new confusing aspects to the era that I don't think are completely covered by this idea of parity. Like, even if there's parity, like, why... Yeah, I guess it's hard to say why can North American teams do so much better now. Like, I think what's really happening is a lack of a strong upper scene, and then sort of inconsistency with sort of the good teams left, and that sort of allows teams who are maybe only top 8 in the world to win tournaments. That's what I see. I don't see a high-level parity equalness between all teams. That's the way I see it. So, but I think the reason why people don't want to adopt the word uncertainty, they don't like that word, is they might think that's like anti-analysis, like you can sort of look at a result. Like, if you look at the result between Optic and Astralis in the finals of ESL or E-League Season 2, there's a couple of big things you can point out to why Optic won. First of all, Astralis are still a pretty new team. They've only played, I think, 2 tournaments with that 5-man roster. And Device, famously does, did not have a good third map of that series. I mean, and you can even look the second half of that Overpass game, that third map, and see like the very sloppy, sort of chaotic. I mean, I think people have even called it like deathmatch as sort of second half of that game, with Device not showing up, and then Nav having this really strange overperformance and showing up and dominating for Optic, and he's not considered one of the strongest players. And then there's the other thing with that series too, is they've picked bans. Astralis banned Cash instead of Cobblestone, and obviously Astralis later made Cobblestone their permaban. So if they banned Cobblestone there, Optic couldn't have picked it for that second map and couldn't have won it. So, I mean, so you can sort of break down these results, right? And if you just say it's uncertain, or there's randomness, or it's chaotic, you're not able to... It feels sort of anti-analysis-esque. I can understand why people don't like that. But I think when you look at the era broadly, there is these sort of weird factors and uncertain factors, and there's an inconsistency of team. Okay, all these things I mentioned before. So people who don't want to call it the uncertainty era, but maybe are sort of slightly convinced by my argument here, who maybe were trying to think of alternative names for this era, what you could call it, that sort of captures this lack of strength in the top scene, and then sort of back and forthness in this sort of middle, this sort of group in the middle. I was thinking maybe like the feuding era might be interesting, or like the Discord era. That might be, those sort of captures like this back and forth quality to like Cloud9 suddenly have a big tournament after a big loss at, they have that big, result at ESL Pro League Season 4 after having the really bad result at E-League Season 2. So it captures like this Discord, this sort of, and then NIP having a good result and a bad result is maybe captures that, and then, Virtus.pro and Na'Vi sort of going back and forth. Discord, feuding, all these different teams. But if you actually are more negative about this era, if you actually think this is a very low period play, are you actually upset with Valve about sort of the coaching role change, which I'm sure a lot of people are, because I think that's the main reason people would say there's sort of inconsistency and uncertainty this era. It sort of ruined lineups. A lot of lineups, like, Cloud9 obviously didn't have an in-game leader and a coach. Well, they had Stewie 2K as in-game leader, but he's very inexperienced. A lot of people will say that's a reason for why that team was inconsistent. Then IP with I'm forgetting the guy's name. Whatever. Anyway, they had a coach and they sort of couldn't use him, and that was sort of a big reason for why people were saying that NIP was increasing in strength in 2016, sort of coming back. But then they have to sort of go back to the sort of without him. So if you want to sort of, and then Navi is an obvious example. People want to bring up sort of this team sort of ruined or made worse by Valve and the Valve's coaching change. You might even want to call this the stolen era, because maybe Navi would have become, it seemed like they should have become the world-leading team in this era. And this is sort of Virtus.pro and SK sort of holding on to, and Navi living up to their potential, right? Or you want to call it maybe like the blank era if you want to be slightly less negative there. So maybe just some food for thought on that topic. I don't expect to change anyone's minds on this. But, this is sort of just my perspective, my view, and why I think it may be a name that connotes more inconsistency or uncertainty or newness and discord and dissonance might be beneficial. Okay, thanks.